A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another session on both Periscope and Facebook Live. Today we are talking about the Messiah and about how the Messiah has come. This is the fourth episode of Discover True Islam series, a series that we're doing in regards to the Messiah having come, and a campaign which is being run by the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community, a global community who has believed in the coming and the truth of the promised Messiah. Now, I guess the first question that we should be asking is, in fact, who the promised Messiah actually is. I mean, we're talking about the Messiah having come. It's a good thing to start on his name. We, as the Ahmadi Muslim community, we believe that this prophecy is fulfilled in the person of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, who claimed to be the promised Messiah in fulfillment of prophecies of all the major religions. Of course, I should also mention that this session was originally advertised and shown to have a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Ibrahim Ikhlif, who is unfortunately is unwell, so a request for prayers from everyone there as well. So today's session, we're going to be looking at the concept of how who the Messiah is, the proofs behind his claim, and also indeed the need of the Messiah as well. So as I've mentioned, we are the Ahmadi Muslim community running this campaign of True Islam, trying to understand what you guys think about the Messiah, try to understand and try to answer some of the questions that are no doubt in the minds of the public. And of course, this is an open platform. We encourage you to ask the questions, ask your comments and your queries about both Islam, Ahmadiyyat, and indeed, in particular, the Messiah himself. Who is the Messiah? What was his claims? And what does his community aim to achieve? So do please send in your questions, your comments, and your queries, and hopefully we'll get around to answering them very soon. Just to give a bit more of a detail and a background to the Messiah himself, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was a man who was born in Qadian in 1835. Qadian is a small village in India, in the Punjab. After receiving divine revelation from God, he then set about taking an oath of initiation from those around him and put down the foundations of the global Ahmadiyya Muslim community, which in the day-to-day grows from strength to strength. And of course, we here at the moment are sitting in London as part of the UK chapter, as it were, of this divinely inspired and international community. Now, in regards to this, there are many issues which we can talk about, and indeed, the promised Messiah, ﷺ, may peace and blessings be upon him, has discussed many issues in regards to being the Messiah and being the Mahdi. And of these, of course, we will hopefully get around to discussing some of these issues as the session continues. And of course, we should also mention, if some of you can notice that I'm skipping between camera to camera, it's because we're on Facebook Live and Twitter, Periscope at the same time. So it's an interesting discussion that we're having today, and of course we want people to send in their questions. Of course, this session on both Facebook and Periscope will only be successful and useful if people send in their questions, if the people look at this post. Of course, share this widely and get as many people on here as we can, so that we can get around to answering some of the nitty-gritty questions about Islam and also about Ahmadiyyat, and in particular, if we can talk about the concept of the Messiah and who he was as well. Now, for people that are listening in and watching, of course, this is an interesting one, because in the day-to-day we are in a situation where we find many fragmented problems, not only to do with morality, but indeed to do with our economy, our social standards. We see scandals up and down right now, and all of these things are creating, they're fragmented problems. And often when we come to look for a solution, we are only indeed come across fragmented solutions. Now, Islam, which we believe, and of course is the religion of peace, prophesied, and the founder of Islam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, prophesied the coming of the promised Messiah, or the Mahdi. And indeed, the Holy Quran itself talks about the coming of an individual in the latter days by the name of Ahmad. So looking at both of these things and looking at the prophecies, not only in the Holy Quran, not only by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, but indeed all the major religions of the world, when we look at these prophecies, we understand that there is a need for an individual to come. And this, of course, is an obvious thing, because when we look around in the world today and we see this plethora of problems that we come across, there is obviously a need. If we truly believe in a God that exists and a God that answers prayers, then of course there is a need for that God to answer these prayers in a way which is pragmatic and a way which is beneficial to mankind as a whole. In regards to this, the promised Messiah, والسلام, peace and blessings of God be upon him, as I said, we believe that role was fulfilled and that prophecy was fulfilled by the person of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Hazrat is a term we use out of respect. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was his name, and we call him Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. He came about in Qadian in India and claimed to be the promised Messiah after having received revelation from God the Almighty. Now, there are several things in regards to this which are, of course, important to understand. Many people ask the question as to how can we know that one Messiah or one Mahdi is, say, true, whereas there have been, over time, many people that have claimed to be the Messiah or the Mahdi. In regards to this, we actually understand and we look at not only the claims of this divine man and this person sent with a divine message from God the Almighty, but indeed we try to understand the veracity of those claims based upon divine proofs and signs given to him by none other than God the Almighty. One aspect in regards to this which we come across and we look at is the concept of the latter days, something which is not only unique to Islam, it's something which is talked about in, again, all the major religions. And we also notice the mention in all these major religions of the coming of an individual in the latter days. So first, of course, it's imperative for us to understand what the latter days are, where and what time frame are we talking about, and then after that we can then narrow down to a potential individual who fulfills these claims and this narrative as well. So again, I want to urge people to not only join our conversation. Of course, this will only be successful if we have questions and comments coming in that we can talk about. It's a brilliant opportunity for us to discuss Islam, discuss Ahmadiyyat, and also discuss the concept of the Messiah, who he was. And if there are any questions about that, then please do send in your comments and your questions and your queries, and we'll try to get round to answering them as soon as possible. Now, we've talked about some of the requisites or the conditions, of course, through the different religions that said that a promised individual would come, a Messiah, or there are many different names for this person. One of these conditions, when we look at the teachings of Islam, in fact, comes about, and of course this is the fourth episode in a series, and it's been mentioned numerous times before, is that in the chapter of the Holy Quran called Surah Takwir. Now, of course, the Holy Quran, Muslims will be very familiar with this, but also any non-Muslims who happen to be watching in, I'd invite you to go onto the website of the community, www.alislam.org, and actually find a copy of the Holy Quran which we can study. And I mean, this study is something which many people have conflated with converting to Islam, for example. There is first a very big need for us to understand the differences amongst ourselves, to celebrate those differences, and then to also learn more about one another's faiths. I think this is an incredibly important thing that we need to do in this day and age. We see many problems in the world of a lack of integration, a lack of appreciation of different communities and different faiths, and I think it's a very, very important situation for us to learn from. Of course, even just today we had the big case of the Finsbury Park attack. And of course, keeping that in mind, the thing that hurts many Muslims most, in fact, is that there are still people around in the world who can have that hate towards Muslims, although Muslims are propagating peace and try to spread peace and love as much as they can. Bringing me on to my other point, one of the strong mottos of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is that of love for all and hatred for none. Now, this, of course, we believe in our strongest motto, and our strongest belief is that of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, that there is no God but God, there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. And in fact, for anyone looking in, this is in fact the tie pin, the blazer pin that I have on right now. It is something that we strongly believe in. And actually, a question that's just come in is about, it actually ties into this very nicely. It says that did Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad bring a new religion? If we actually look at the concept, there is nowhere at all that the promised Messiah, والسلام, peace and blessings of God be upon him, said that I start a new religion. In fact, he was a Messiah in order to bring the people of the world back to the original teachings of Islam. So the very religion that he came to uphold and to support, as it were, was the religion of Islam. Nothing more, nothing less. In fact, no teachings of the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, go against the teachings of Islam. This is something very, very important for us to remember. Ahmadi Muslims, we have the same kalima, we have the same proclamation of faith, we believe in the same pillars of Islam, we have the same Kaaba and Makkah that we pray to, we pray in the same fashion to other Muslims, and we have the same belief in God. So it's a very important thing for us to remember. As far as a question in regards to the difference between Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis, then it is simply this, that all religions all around the world have prophesied the coming of an individual, a promised individual, in the latter days. Ahmadi Muslims are a community that believe that that prophecy has indeed been fulfilled and that God has fulfilled his prophecy, as opposed to leaving this prophecy unfulfilled. This is the only difference. Otherwise, absolutely every single element of our faith is completely in accordance with the Holy Quran and the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. And similarly, our belief in the promised Messiah, our belief in the Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian is not something separate. This belief is only our belief because of the fact that we have been instructed to believe it by none other than the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who clearly says in Sahih Muslim, Kitab al-Fitan Bab Ukhruj ad-Dajjal, which is the reference for the hadith. Indeed, if anyone wishes to go and look it up, I'll repeat it. Sahih Muslim, Kitab al-Fitan Bab Ukhruj ad-Dajjal. And in this hadith, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam very clearly explains that a prophet, he uses the term of Isa, but he says Isa will return and he will be a prophet and have companions. And he prophesies the return of this prophet in the latter days. In other circumstances, we see in the Holy Quran as well, it also talks about the coming of a person in the latter days, and it even uses his name. It says this person's name will be Ahmad. Now, if we look at all of these things, we as Muslims, indeed theists and believers all around the world, our job is not to put one faith above the other. That is not the end result that we are looking to do. The end result that we wish to achieve is the pleasure of God the Almighty. This is the most important thing. If one of us wants to get to Leicester or to Birmingham, we don't care about who owns the road. It's about the quickest and most simplest way of ensuring that we get there at the right time for the right purpose. This is religion. In fact, bringing into this, there's a very important thing which I once spoke about before, which is in regards to a Sufi Coptic. And she was very famous for her examples. And one day she was seen running with a bowl of water and a bowl of fire. And the people asked her, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "I wish to burn down heaven and to extinguish the fire of hell. Because I do not want people to be doing things simply for the fear of punishment or for the want of a reward, but merely I want them to do it for the pleasure of God." This is a metaphorical thing, but it's very important for us to understand in order to try and appreciate each other's religions. Religions, we believe, even though they're different in their faiths and their practices, we believe that all religions originally came from the one true God. They were sent down by messengers, and in fact it is incumbent upon Muslims that we believe in the truth and the veracity of all the prophets that have come before us. And it's often a very shocking thing for people to hear. Jesus, of course, we've heard many things in the news and things, Jesus being one of the most often, indeed the most often repeated prophet in the Holy Quran, the most often mentioned prophet in the Holy Quran. Muslims have an incredible reverence for Jesus, as they do the other prophets that are mentioned and indeed that aren't mentioned. This fact is mentioned in the Holy Quran, that there are many that are here and many that have not been mentioned before. Another question that's come in saying, was not the Messiah supposed to bring peace in the whole world? Indeed he was. We see in fact that the promised Messiah, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, came to spread the message of Islam. And it is our true and it is our strong belief that one can achieve true peace and true contentment of the heart by abiding to and abiding by the teachings of Islam and understanding what Islam truly means. Because if we look at it, religion itself should not be simply your relationship with God. Now hold on, let me explain that. Religion should not only be an individual's relationship with God. Rather, it should also include the very important aspect of an individual's relationship with his fellow human beings. Islam, we believe, has inculcated the teachings of both the rights of the Creator and the rights of the creation, and thereby creates such an element of social peace and harmony that is unrivaled in the world. The promised Messiah, peace and blessings of God be upon him, came to revive those very same messages. There is in fact a prophecy of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, that he said, there will be a time, in the latter days again, that the mosques will be full but devoid of faith. He talked about how the so-called scholars of the time will lead to the misguidance of people. So therefore saying that faith will exist, but people have lost the essence of faith. And what is that essence? It's a twofold purpose. One, so that we understand how to look after the rights of God, and secondly, how we can understand to look after the rights of creation, something which we in the Ahmadiyya Muslim community strongly abide by because of the fact that we have those teachings instilled in us from a young age as a result of following the Khilafat of the promised Messiah, or the successorship of the promised Messiah. We believe that through this divine successorship, which is continuous from the advent of the promised Messiah to the present day, we are able to maintain a strong and living relationship with God the Almighty. Why are you declared non-Muslim? That's a question that's come up. I guess the answer to that should actually first be who declares us the non-Muslim. It's an interesting debate. I was actually asked this a couple of days ago, and the answer that I gave, I hope you guys like it as well. Simply put, I asked the person who they believed had the right to declare the faith or deny the faith of another person. And of course the answer was, I don't think anyone has. I think God has that right. And this is very crucial to understand. I can ask somebody and I can declare that somebody, I don't know, is born in Indonesia. If I have no proof of that, it doesn't matter how many thousands of people I get together and tell them to all say it together. It doesn't make the statement any truer. It might make it louder, but it doesn't make it any truer. And this is something which we have been talking to the world about for a very, very long time. If it can be proven that there is a teaching within the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, I mean, it's in the name, isn't it? Ahmadiyya Muslim Community. If there can be proven that there is a teaching of ours which is contrary to the teachings of the Holy Quran and the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, then you have solid ground for argument, not even then for definition, solid ground for argument and conversation and discussion. But we openly and clearly, categorically say that every single teaching and practice of the members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community are in complete accordance with the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, and that of God. So therefore, I mean, we are declared non-Muslim, and just going to the history of this, I mean, this really doesn't interest me a lot, because the person that I look to for a definition of who is a Muslim and who is not is the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. But just so that I answer the question, there are certain governments around the world who, for reasons which I'm not going to go into, they can be easily researched by an internet Google search or whatever else you want to search with, for political reasons and other reasons of personal gain, have decided to declare the Ahmadi Muslims as non-Muslims. The reasons they cite are, among others, that we do not believe in the finality or the seal of the prophethood, that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the Khatamun Nabiyyin. That's number one. We do believe that he was the Khatamun Nabiyyin. Secondly, that we have a different kalima to them, or different proclamation of belief. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. I can assure you I didn't have this pin made specially for this Periscope broadcast. It's something which I strongly believe in. I teach my children. I teach everyone around me. This is something which we strongly believe in. And in fact, if we look around the world, I mean, the persecution of minorities has been something which is often well documented. human rights watches and human rights committees, and indeed the media, have done a fantastic job in trying to highlight some of these issues around the world. In particular, we see in countries such as Pakistan, where we are accused of having a different kalima, and then our mosques are raided and the kalima is painted off with white paint to stop people understanding the truth. You see, religion is not something which we are arrogant or proud of. Religion is us understanding a way to reach our God and our Maker. If anything, it should make us more humble. If we believe that we as Ahmadis or we as Muslims have a superior relationship with God, this is wrong. We should believe in what we believe in and try to bring others towards us, but without trying to put other religions down. As we have said before in the beginning of this broadcast, we believe as Muslims in the veracity and the truth of all of the prophets and all of the religions in their original source. And we believe that those people who believe in those religions have every single right to express that freedom of belief and that freedom of religion. In fact, a topic which is often brought up is the concept of jihad, and it's often an allegation which is thrown at Muslims. And in fact, if we look at this concept, the Holy Quran clearly talks about the fact that Muslims are only permitted in order to uphold and support the freedom of religion and the freedom of expression. And it says, in fact, that Muslims' responsibility is in looking after the synagogues and the temples and the mosque, as well as the other places of worship. And it says these by name. So that is that concept. And it's an interesting one to see that often when people throw around accusations, in actual fact, when you look at those accusations, they often apply more to the people doing the accusing than the people that are accused. The promised Messiah has come in the person of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Then what happened to Jesus? If the promised Messiah has come in the person of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, then what happened to Jesus? So we believe, according to the Holy Quran, we believe that every single soul, indeed every single person, shall taste death, which is a metaphorical and a beautiful poetic way of saying we're all going to die, which is a fact, scary as it may be. Having said this and having understood this, we also believe that just as our beloved Prophet, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, died and he passed away, we also believe this is the same case with Jesus, alayhi salatu wasalam, may peace and blessings of God be upon him. Now, contrary to normal understandings of how this happened, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has a slightly different understanding, something which is actually in accordance, believe it or not, with science and history, which is often something which is lacking when we look at other perspectives on the same account. What we believe is that Jesus was indeed put on the cross. So there's many unfounded commentaries in regards to this, saying that his face was swapped with somebody else and somebody slipped him. I mean, okay, we don't believe that. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community does not believe that someone else's face was put on his face or he was switched at the last moment, because quite simply history has no account of this, and there is no reference to this in any book of Hadith or the Holy Quran. So I mean, we can't just make up stories and say this is part of our faith. We need a solid religious grounding for what we believe in. What we, however, believe is that he was indeed put on the cross, but he was not killed on the cross. This is also mentioned in the Holy Quran. It says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُم. That it was made to look as if he had passed away on the cross, but indeed he hasn't. And this is in accordance with the Bible as well. When we look at the references of the Bible actually explains, and it has lots and lots of details of this, from the piercing of the side of Jesus with a spear, and it says out gushed blood and water. Medically speaking, there's people that have given other references for this, but medically speaking, that indicates the heart was still beating. Otherwise, the blood would have clotted together by that point. There's also references to how Jesus' legs were not broken, which is often a common practice of breaking the legs in order to speed up the process of crucifixion. We also see many medical research into this has taken place, showing that in fact the crucifixion takes a certain amount of time, and Jesus, because of the day that he was put onto the cross, was not there for nearly as much time as it would take for a normal, healthy man of his age to pass away on the cross. Then the fact that his body was given to his friends and close allies, as opposed to when this was not a norm. In fact, his body was given to people who could take care of him. Then there's also reference in the Bible of the ointment which was used to heal him, which coincidentally later on in the journals of apothecary and in the medical journals afterwards is named as Marham Isa, which is the ointment of Jesus. Interesting, when you look this up, of course, don't just take my word for it. Go home, well, you probably are at home anyway, but go on the internet and look it up. These are issues which are documented. Marham Isa, or the ointment of Jesus, is used, and was used indeed, to heal the wounds of people who had limbs amputated or had life-threatening injuries. So I mean, if this ointment of Jesus, or this Marham Isa, was used on Jesus and he died anyway, I really wouldn't see why they would use it to heal patients of amputees and otherwise. The point is that history points to the fact that Jesus was put on the cross. We cannot deny that. It is impossible, and it is irrelevant to deny that. But the Quran says, وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ, that they were made to look as if he had passed away on the cross. And there are many examples both in the Bible and indeed history which says that he didn't. In fact, what we believe is that after he was taken to the sepulchre and given this ointment, which is clearly mentioned, frankincense and myrrh, I believe, are also mentioned inside, then it actually gives the measurements of how much was used. After this was put on top, applied to his wounds, and he was wrapped in linen in a large tomb. You say a tomb, but it was basically a large ward, and the front entrance was closed off so that nothing could get inside. And then even there's lots of discussions in regards to the shroud of Turin, or the shroud of Jesus. Again, more research in regards to how he was actually alive at the time of this. He then came out and showed the wounds on his hands and said, look, I am real, I'm alive. When someone comes out of hospital and shows you their wounds, it doesn't mean I died and I was resurrected. It means, look, I survived. And then according to history, most importantly for me, as a Muslim who believes in the truth of both God and Jesus, Jesus was sent with a message. He said, I have not been sent but to the lost tribes of Israel. And according to history, not all the tribes of Israel were present in Israel at that time. They had dispersed across India and Afghanistan. So I cannot for a moment accept that Jesus was to be taken up by God without having fulfilled his message, which he himself declared that he had come for. Instead, according to history, he traveled across India and Afghanistan, not for a matter of traveling, but indeed for a matter of fulfilling the message for which he himself said that he had been sent. And he passed away and is buried in a place called Srinagar in Kashmir. And one can actually go online and find this out and actually look into it. And there's huge documentation of Jesus in India. Indeed, one written, a book entirely upon this, written in a thesis by the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who explained all of this information to us and is in accordance with history and medical science. Another question, if the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, is the last prophet, then how can a Messiah be a prophet? Brilliant question. As I've explained before, and I'll just go back into it, I can see there's a few more people that have joined us as well. The purpose of Islam was not fulfilled within 30 or 40 years. Religion is a linear process which from the beginning of time till the end of humanity has always been there to guide mankind to leading a better quality of life, both here and indeed achieving a better communion and pleasurable relationship with God in the afterlife. The concept of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, we clearly say he is the Khatam al-Nabiyyin, the seal of the prophets, the best of all creation. This is our belief as Ahmadi Muslims. But along with that, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, himself has declared that Islam is the perfect religion and that a Messiah will come in the latter days. A Messiah who will not take away anything from the concept of religion, who will take anything away from the teachings of Islam. In fact, he will be there to bolster and support those very same teachings. So indeed, the promised Messiah ﷺ has himself said that I am in no way a prophet in my own right, in that sense that I bring a new message or a Sharia, as it were. Rather, I am here simply and only to follow and support the message, then the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this way also, we look at the a relation of Hazrat Aisha. Now you're wondering why I'm talking about a wife of the Prophet. Well, we were told to learn half of our faith from this woman, an incredibly intelligent and intellectual woman who proved not only to be an amazing wife to the Prophet, but in her own right, a formidable academic force from which we have learned so much in history. Again, a tribute to how important and influential women are in society and just how important of a role Islam places on them as well. She says, and this is a quote from Durr Mansoor, or Durr Mansoor, rather I should say. And in this, she talks about, and she says, call him, they talk about the finality of prophethood. And she says, call him the Khatamun Nabiyyin, but do not say that there will be no prophet after him. Why did she say this? This is a woman who's living in the company of the Prophet continuously, who knows half of faith, that we should learn half of Islam from this woman. And she is saying, do not say that there will be no prophet after him. Because think about it logically. If the guidance for mankind comes through prophets and through religion, and we accept this, the Quran says that when there is a spiritual darkness, we send a prophet. If it is sent via prophets and via religion, and we pray, think about how many theists, or indeed just take the Muslims, how many times do we pray, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, that guide us on the right path? But we ourselves then believe that prophets can't come. Then what are we praying for? The promised Messiah ﷺ is not only prophesied by the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, but he is also prophesied by the Holy Quran, and indeed by all the major religions in the world. So he's not starting a new religion. The Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the final law-bringing prophet, the prophet under whom the promised Messiah ﷺ, peace and blessings of God be upon him, has come. So in this sense, of course, the Holy Prophet is the last prophet. The promised Messiah is simply there in accordance to the prophecy of the Holy Prophet, to support and bolster the teachings of Islam, which we can see clearly in the day-to-day have been in a decline. Another question. Can you explain the incident of Mirage of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him? Now, this is an interesting one, because according to this situation, there are many different interpretations of the event of Mirage. Now, there are two specific events, and they should be separated. And of course, I won't go into details, but you should go back and you should research this yourself. There is the event of the Mirage and the event of Isra. These are two completely different events mentioned in two completely different narrations in the Ahadith, and have two completely different meanings and purposes. The one key element, though, to understand in both of them is that they were not physical. It is ridiculous to think that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, rode on a real horse and went up to heaven. Heaven is not a physical place. This is also one of the issues that we talk about when we talk about the ascension of Jesus, as it were. And the Quran says, "Bal rafa'ahu Allah ilayh," that he was raised towards him, i.e. towards God. Where is God? God is everywhere. So where was he raised to? Was it past Mars? Was it past Jupiter? Physically, according to the laws of science, how long will it take him to get there? When does he have to leave to come back? I mean, all these things, there's many problems there. Rather, this is a spiritual ascension, an ascension that the accusations levied against him were raised, and they were taken away, and his spiritual level was raised. In regards to Miraj and Isra, again, two separate events. Please do go back and look them up. One is in a visionary form to Beit al-Maqdis in Jerusalem, or the Dome of the Rock, and the other is in regards to a spiritual ascension to heaven in a form of a vision or a dream. And in this, actually, if you look at it, he goes to heaven. In this one event, he goes to heaven, and in heaven, the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is shown the different forms of heaven, etc., etc. Please do go back and look it up yourself. But the important thing here is that many people raise the allegation that how on earth could a person physically ride this lightning speed or a donkey or horse called Buraq, and how could he have gone to heaven? That's the point. This is not a physical narration. This is a spiritual, metaphoric narration, talking about how God, in all of his power and wisdom, can show and did show the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, the reality of heaven. But indeed, even at the end of the narration, it says that the bed was warm, and they heard the knocking of the kundi, or the lock on the door, when his wife came in. So I mean, we're given the clear signs, we're told explicitly what to understand, what to believe in, but it's up to us to understand it. I mean, we as humans often make such simple things so difficult, and this is one of our major problems. There are many, many theists around in the world right now. Indeed, I would say the majority of theists, the large majority of theists around the world right now, who want to live together in peace and in harmony and create a loving, bridged relationship between the faiths. This is what is taught to us by the promised Messiah ﷺ. He says that it's my purpose to fulfill the rights of humanity. We as Muslims and Ahmadi Muslims believe in this two-column approach of religion. On one column stands the rights of God, looking after God and understanding what God wants and what God wants from us. And on the other, it is the rights of the creation, looking after the people around us and trying to make life better for them. This is what we understand. This is what we abide by. Again, the questions come through again in regards to something which we've talked about, saying, according to chapter 4, verse 158, the Holy Quran says that Allah raised Jesus into heaven. Quite short, quite simply, no, it doesn't. The verse of the Holy Quran talks about the narration or the vakya, I'm thinking of the event, rather, I can't think of the word, the event of Jesus' death, and it says that he wasn't killed, this didn't happen, but in fact, we raised him unto us. Bal rafa'u Allahu ilayhi. Rather, God raised him unto himself. That's the verse that we're referring to. But in this regard, if we look at it, as we've already mentioned, heaven isn't a physical place. I mean, why is that we've not been able to find it yet? I mean, we've got of all the things that are going on right now, we understand that there is a need for people to see things to believe it. But that's the whole point of belief, where God leads you in the right direction. Sorry, pardon me. God leads you in the right direction, but doesn't provide you with absolutely everything for you to understand. I mean, thank you very much. What's the point in belief otherwise? What's the point? If I tell you that I'm on Periscope and Facebook Live right now, you will believe me because you can see me. But you have belief and faith in the fact that another episode of this series will soon come out, discussing further issues in regards to this, because I'm saying it. If you don't believe me, you don't have faith in me. But the fact is that until there is, all you have is belief and faith. God the Almighty has said through various different prophecies and fulfilled prophecies that so-and-so will happen, and this will happen, and that will happen. And when we see those things to have been fulfilled, we understand that that is true. One such example is that of the promised Messiah. One big example of his claim to being the promised Messiah is the fulfillment of a hadith or a saying of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings of God be upon him, which is narrated in Dar Qutni. This hadith is in regards to the eclipse of the sun and the moon. Now these we understand. Let's first understand one thing, that I'm getting questions coming in, so I'm gonna move on quickly. But I'm gonna get to these questions as well. We understand by the eclipse of the sun and the moon. I mean, I don't have any power over the sun. I don't have any power over them. I don't know if anyone listening in has. If you do, then please leave a comment and we need to get in touch. I don't have any power of this. This is simply down to the majesty and the grandeur of God himself. Now, a man 1400 years ago, albeit the best of all creation, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, said that when a Messiah comes, he will claim to be the Messiah, and in the month of Ramadan, the holy month of fasting for Muslims, on specific days within Ramadan, the sun will eclipse and the moon will eclipse. Now, the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, when he was born, when he grew into his age, or when he claimed prophethood, when he claimed to be the Messiah, he has no control over the sun and the moon. It could be that during his whole lifetime this didn't happen. But the fact that when he claimed, the sun and the moon, and of course astronomy is something which we can all look into, this was a clear sign across the whole of creation. The sun and the moon eclipsed exactly on the days which were prophesied, and at the time when the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, made his claim. He made his claim before the eclipses happened, and then they happened. Before this happened, it was unanimously thought about that when this sign happens, that will be the sign for the promised Messiah. And this is a very grand prophecy of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, by the Muslim clerics at the time. But when it happened, unanimously they started disagreeing. They said, no, people are going to be sent in disarray because of this. As opposed to recognizing this as a sign of God and having any sense of righteousness in them and moving towards this for political gain and personal gain, they decide to move away from it. It's an important point to remember, and I hope you take that away. Where is Allah if Allah raised Jesus to himself? This is the same point. Where is God? If anyone knows, please do let me know. There's not one specific place of God. God has no dimension. God has no time. Where does God start? Where does God finish? Where does God raise Jesus to? Where is Jesus right now? If Jesus is in a physical place somewhere, then he must be next to God. If he's in a physical place somewhere, does he have food with him? Does he have a prayer mat, because he's supposed to, according to his own teachings, he is meant to continuously pray to God. He's also meant to continuously look after his mother. Is his mother there with him as well? I mean, do they go to sleep? Do they wake? I mean, it's ridiculous. God, we all know, is not a physical place. God is without dimension. When God says, I raised Jesus unto me, it means in regards to the allegation raised against him, and in regards to a spiritual ascension, not a physical ascension. Who is your promised Messiah? So, as I've said before, all the major religions in the world have prophesied the coming of an individual in the latter days, be that in the form of Krishna, the second coming of Christ, or indeed many others, and there are many, many different names for this person. I believe that they are all unanimously fulfilled in the person of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who was born in Qadian in 1835. He claimed to be the promised Messiah in fulfillment of these prophecies. They're not only just claimed to be, he showed divine signs, and of course we can go into the details of that. When if you want to leave us your email address or contact details, we can send you the claims, and you can look at them yourself. It's important for us to research into it ourselves, as opposed to just taking my word for it. I implore all of you listening in to go out and research the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and research the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and what we believe in. And I'm sure you won't be disappointed. Why do Ahmadi Muslims refer to themselves as Ahmadi Muslims and not just Muslims? It's an interesting one. Ahmadi, you'll be surprised to know, doesn't actually refer, in fact, to the promised Messiah, peace and blessings of God be upon him. It in fact refers to the name given by the Holy Quran also to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. Ahmad being a name of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. Now we understand that in the modern day there is much turmoil and much confusion within the people. We are Muslims, and we call people to rejuvenate and regenerate their faith in Islam, sticking by and standing by our true message of Islam, and the message which is given to us not just by the promised Messiah, but given to us first and foremost by the holy founder of Islam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. We call ourselves Ahmadi Muslims because we abide by the Sunnah and the practice of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we call people to join our community in the understanding of the true message of Islam. Otherwise, we look around, and if I was to say I'm a Muslim, someone else to stand up and say I'm a Muslim, and yet there is significant difference between the ways and the morals of these two people, it would become more confusing than anything. We abide by every letter of the law of Islam, and that's why we wish to call ourselves Ahmadi Muslims, Muslims that believe in Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. So again, another few questions are coming in. Why is it that if Messiah has come, we are hearing about it 120 years after the claim? Well, you tell me. The promised Messiah, peace and blessings of God be upon him, during his lifetime, his message is recorded to have come here to Britain, across to America, all around the world. The missionaries were sent in order to spread this message. Unfortunately, we see, as is the case today, this Periscope message is going out, and it is an open platform. We are telling the message of Ahmadiyyat and the message of the true Islam for absolutely anyone and everyone to hear. So if this person who's asking this question, it is then incumbent upon them to spread this message as widely as they can. Spread this video as much as you can. Spread awareness of this as much as you can. This won't, if at the end of the day, if we are wrong and we are lying and we are sitting here, and I know many people in previous videos have accused of taqiyya and other things which I can't get my head around myself, then ultimately God has promised that he himself will destroy us. But we see on a day-to-day basis, millions of people across the year and across 2-3 years are joining the community. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community is in well over 200 countries in the world, and we're in the tens of millions of followers. We are respected not because of our financial standing or our political agendas, because we have none. Everything we have is simply as a result of our belief in God, our belief in the holy founder of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, and his Messiah. We believe in the rights of God and the rights of the creation, and we will stand by this. And this is the only reason that we have any respect or standing in the world. There are several verses of the Holy Quran that say Allah is on his throne. What is meant by this? So again, the Holy Quran, as I always said, is a beautiful book of poetry. Not only does it give us succinct and meaningful messages of guidance to better our lives and to create betterment within our own lives, and indeed the lives of the people around us, making us better constituents within a larger society, but it also enables us to enjoy religion. In this regard, God says in the Holy Quran that He sits upon His throne. This is an idea of majesty, as of course is inferred by the throne. God, again, is without dimension. His throne is His attributes. Just how an individual is known by his actions, God is known through His attributes. And this is this way of knowing. Like a tree is known by its fruits. You wouldn't say, oh, the fruits go out and actually introduce, oh, this is a tree, this is an apple tree, this is a pear tree. It doesn't make much sense. It's the reality is that it's the attributes of God which form the knowing of God. And this is what is meant by His throne. Was not the Messiah supposed to bring peace in the whole world? I think this has already been mentioned before, but indeed it's an important one. Yes, the Messiah is to bring peace in the whole world. And that's what we're here for. We're here for dialogue. We don't want a reoccurrence of what happened in Finsbury Park. We don't want a reoccurrence of what's happening in places around the world where there is so much problems going on. There are so many issues of violence and religious hatred and intolerance going on that there is a desperate need for reformation, which we believe is fulfilled by the coming of the Messiah. You will find that in the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, not a single person is involved in acts of terrorism or acts of extremism. And indeed, on the other side of the fact, we are not only pragmatic, loyal, and productive members of society wherever we are in the world. We are strong. First and foremost, we are only strong and only pragmatic and only loyal because it is what our Prophet, the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, taught us to be. We are Muslims and we will strongly stand by our faith regardless of what people will try to say. Again, another question that's come up: did Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad bring a new religion? I believe we've talked about this. No, he had no new religion. His primary purpose, his only purpose, was to bring people back to the main tenets and to the religious understanding that is Islam. He many times has said that I am only because of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. Even my prophethood is nothing other than a complete and utter obedience to the person of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. And that is what we believe in. The Holy Prophet Muhammad categorically is the peak of creation. And we believe that, and then we believe that the prophets that were sent by God, they also have an incredibly respected and high role in society. And we must revere them and we must respect them. The promised Messiah, in no Ahmadi's mind whatsoever is there a concept that the promised Messiah has any sort of importance over that of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. This is me as an Imam saying this out loud, openly on a platform, that no Ahmadi would see the promised Messiah, والسلام, peace and blessings of God be upon him, as a status more than that of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of God be upon him. And I want that message to go out clearly to absolutely everyone that's listening in. Why do Ahmadis believe Ahmadiyyat is the correct one of all the sects? That's a question that's come in. Look, you guys tell me. There is an interesting conversation that needs to be had here. I'm not going to go into the theological debate of this. I want you to tell me just simply practically, what's the issue? We are Muslims sitting here who openly declare, and this is not just me or my brothers or people doing other posts, this is the caliph of a worldwide Ahmadi Muslim community, a global community who preaches peace and preaches every single thing in accordance with the teachings of Islam. Is that not what the definition of a true Muslim is? I mean, we pick up other individuals and scandals of lying and scandals of abuse and scandals of money laundering and scandals of this. And these are proven things. These individuals go to jail. These individuals are sent around the world in investigations. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community is headed by the spiritual founder at present, who is the 5th caliph of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad. May God strengthen his hand. And he is a formidable, not only a formidable leader, a formidable Muslim in terms of his propagation of the faith of Islam, standing out amongst all others around the world. People not only say that if Muslims should be there, they should be Ahmadi Muslims because of our attitude to people, our openness, and our complete reliance upon the instruction and the teachings of Islam. There is nothing that we can do other than the teachings of Islam that will give us any success. We as Muslims believe that even when we blink or take a swallow, it is purely because of the grace of God, nothing to do with our own. And it's through our obedience to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, that we are successful. And this can be seen across the world. So that is our proof. Moving away from the theological debate, which I think you can go and we can talk about in a later session. Did Kalamullah become a physical book called the Quran? There was a debate in regards to this, but we believe that the Holy Quran was revealed to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, over a certain period of time by God through the Prophet Gabriel, or Jibraeel as he is mentioned in Arabic. So in that way, the word of God in a way has become a physical form. But what happened at that point was, as opposed to it just being remembered by one person or two people, it was then immediately spread out to hundreds of thousands of people to memorize. It was then included in the law and written down and compiled together, which is why even right now, if we were to, and of course, if we were to hide all of the Qurans in the world in a room, big room, but hide them all in a room, and then ask an individual to write the Quran from scratch, we would have millions of people who could write the whole of the Quran from scratch all over again, and not an iota would be different to the original Quran. This is very important because it safeguards the Quran from any interpolations and any changes, which we see according to different versions of other scriptures. And again, not to name any, I don't want to cause any offense on this session. We see that according to different versions of other books, there are huge differences, not only in the language used, but indeed in the message sent out as well. The Quran, of course, has prophesied this will not happen to the Quran, and this is how we see today. Indeed, just interesting there, one of the oldest Qurans, which was found in Birmingham, I believe, where I grew up, no less, didn't pick up the accent. When it originated there, we've actually seen now, coming out from the records, that Quran, the Quran that people are looking at nowadays, has absolutely no difference, which is actually a miracle in itself. Does Quran have two natures, physical and spiritual? Yes, indeed it does. I think the question more importantly is, does Islam have two natures? The Quran does teach physical attributes such as the performing of the pilgrimage or performing of the prayer, the respect shown in a physical form towards the elders, the wearing of modest clothes. Indeed, many other aspects are, I can't name them all, in a physical nature. But we strongly believe that the physical the outward affects the inner, and the inner affects the outward. If you are modest on the outward, eventually, if you have with a clear and pure heart, that will affect the inside as well. And the same is for the inside on the outside as well. That if you are truly pure and modest on the inside, eventually it will show on the outside in your mannerisms and your characteristics as well. The Quran indeed very strongly understands the join and the link between the spiritual and the physical. And often in today's society, we don't often make that link. We don't often think that actually if we do pray to God, can he really help us in a physical way? Or is it just that loving feeling that we get? Muslims, we believe and we vouch by the fact that we have a living relationship with God who guides us and helps us on a daily basis. And we strongly believe in that. And the message of this, as given by the Quran, is وَاتَّصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا, that hold fast by the rope of God. And if you ask God for prayer, God promises to reply. We believe that rope is the rope of caliphate and the rope of khilafat, a very important concept for us in the successorship of the promised Messiah who came in fulfillment of the prophecy of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. How can Islam reunite all the religions? Did Kalamullah become a physical book, or did it come down as a book? Become a physical book, did it come down as a book? Yes, sir. I think I just talked about. There's a couple of questions coming in about that. It came down through revelation, in audio form. Okay, it came down in audio form. In audio form, when I say it, like it came down in mixtape. It came down via revelation, and that revelation was then taken by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, and given to his community and to his family and to his friends, which was then written down and memorized in order that no interpolations could possibly happen. I think I got a like for the mixtape comment there. There's loads of questions that come through. Why do Muslim men force women to wear the hijab? Look, I don't force my wife to wear the hijab. I don't force my mother to wear the hijab. I don't force my sister to wear the hijab. It is completely down to their own free will. The Quran has said that there is no compulsion in religion. La ikraha fi din, a categoric verse which I will say so many times as someone asks me if there's force in religion. No, there's not. I have no right to enforce my opinion upon other people. If an individual chooses to be a Muslim, and they choose to be part of the community, say, for example, here in the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community, we condone the wearing of the hijab. And of course, there's a lot of debate right now about whether, say, for example, children should be wearing the hijab. In regards to that, of course, I mean, you look at a primary school, indeed, there's a lot of debate going on right now about Ofsted, indeed, many other issues regarding Theresa May as well. There is no need or categorical need for a girl who's in primary school to wear a hijab if she doesn't wish to. That is her freedom. If, on the other hand, she wishes to and she wants to wear a hijab, having seen her mother or a family friend, or wishes to by herself, that again is her freedom. We are no one to take away the freedom of choice of others. And if we move into a society where we are willing to legislate the usurping of the religious right or religious rights of expression, then what are we moving forward towards? We should be a society which upholds the right of expression, the right and the freedom of expression, be that religious or indeed otherwise. And Islam champions this right. Indeed, hijab, in a general sense, Islam talks about, and the Holy Quran talks about the need for modesty. And indeed, as we've talked about before, the spiritual has an effect on the physical, and the physical has an aspect as an inspect. That doesn't make much sense. The outward has an effect on the inward, and the inward has an effect on the outward. Men are told to dress modestly just as much as women are told to dress modestly. Men are told to lower their gaze, women are told to lower their gaze. Men are told not to have extramarital relations, women are told not to have extramarital relations. It's the same concept. It's for the betterment and the modesty of people. The hijab does not limit women in any way whatsoever. And indeed, there are many, 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 many women that have talked about this extensively. I think it's about time that we listen to their opinion as opposed to forcing men to speak on their behalf. And I think this is a very important point. The women in our lives are crucial, and they are more than capable of discussing this topic for themselves. Can Islam coexist with democratic values? I mean, there's a whole study done on this, in fact, many studies, comparing the Charter of Human Rights to the Charter of Rights given by humanity. I mean, what are democratic values? Democracy, the first word that comes to my mind is the right to vote. Islam has given the right to vote to all people 1400 years ago. I mean, the right to vote for women, and respect to the suffragettes, because they did a lot of hard work in regards to this, and I'm sure if you know, you'll agree. If you don't, then please do look it up. It's an important part of our history. The suffragettes did amazing work in terms of getting the votes for women, and only recently do women enjoy the right to vote here in the West. The right to vote was given to women by Islam 1400 years ago. The right to inherit at a time when women were seen as the property of men. The right to divorce, again, at a time when women were seen as a right of inheritance when the man passed away. These are all things which unfortunately do not get covered by the media, do not get covered by stories. You guys have a responsibility to go out, share this post, and tell people what the real message of Islam is. Islam respects mothers so much and women so much that it places heaven beneath the feet of the mothers. The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of God be upon him, would stand up when his daughter would enter the room and offer his seat to his daughter. In response to that, the daughter would do the same for her father. That's the example for fathers for their daughters. In a situation in a country in a time in which daughters were buried alive, this is what the Prophet brought. The revolution for women's rights is not now in the 21st century. It happened a millennium and a half ago in Saudi Arabia, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, came and said this would be a time. Interestingly, I talked about Surah Taqweer earlier on in this scope. Indeed, the Facebook Live is on. Sorry, not leaving you up. And I mentioned about how there are many prophecies in regards to this. One of them actually infers and talks specifically about the rights of women. It says that the rights of women will be questioned at that time. They said that rights of women will be established at that time. And now, in today's society, is there any other time where we've talked about the rights of women more? This is the time inferring towards and indicating towards the time of the promised Messiah, ﷺ, peace and blessings of God be upon him. I myself as an imam and many other imams along with me, we have campaigned at the Houses of Parliament and spoken about end FGM, the female genital mutilation. We've campaigned against these things. We've campaigned for women's rights. Our women and our wives and our mothers are spokespersons in the community who are supported towards education, who are indeed the linchpins of our society. And Islam is the thing that has taught me this. Islam is the thing that has taught Muslims this. And it is imperative that we go back to our teachings. And if Muslims are not abiding by these teachings, it means all the more that there is the need of a reformer, the need of a Messiah, the need of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. What is your response to Muslims calling you non-Muslim? Prove it. I guess that's a decent one. I'll leave it at that. I think I'll talk about that enough now. A woman gets half the inheritance of that a man gets. Yep, indeed, you're completely right. Also, another fact which is nice and happy to put in there with that is women who work, their husbands have no right whatsoever on their property, have no right whatsoever on their income. The women have no need whatsoever to give money to their husbands. The entire financial burden is only upon the Muslim men, according to Islam. So, I mean, literally, women will get inheritance halved. That's literally in accordance with their own will. When they become, when they're Muslim wives or Muslim women, they get married, they have their own inheritance. So they not only inherit half of whatever they have, but they also then have no financial responsibility. That's literally play money. That's literally money that they could do whatever they want with. And the men are, in fact, told that you are not to take a single penny from your wife unless she wants you to. And also along with that, you have to pay for children, you have to pay for the house, you have to pay for her car, and you have to pay for her as well. Everything she wants is your responsibility. So you tell me, is that not fair? I mean, the fact is that, I mean, for example, in Muslim families, often what happens is that we see, unfortunately, around the world, forget Muslim families, around the world we see that there is horrible treatment of women. There is an objectification of women. There is the usurping of women's rights. There is the glass ceiling. There is the gender pay gap. And all of these things have been taken away by Islam because it says women should work if you want to work. But you don't have a financial responsibility on your family. You work because you want to work. Earn money as much as you want. That's for you. It's your husband's responsibility to provide for everything else. And again, so this is not taking the right to work away from women. This is saying women, work as much as you want. I mean, look at the education statistics, even here in the United Kingdom. I mean, Muslim women are more educated than Muslim men. I mean, this is a reality. The fact of the matter is that we need to understand that the rights of women are given by Muslims. And if they are not being given by Muslims, then that proves that there is a need to look back at the core teachings of Islam and understand that, you know, women are very, very crucial. And in fact, I'd probably argue even probably more crucial than men. I think many men would agree with me on that. There is a consensus in Islamic, well, I'm going to get a couple of dislikes probably from there from a lot of different people, but it's true. Women are the example of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, who, I mean, he's the example of chivalry. His wife is to get onto a camel. This is the governor of the area, the king, the sultan, both the spiritual leader and the political leader. He would go down to one knee and allow his wife to stand on him while she gets onto the camel. He heard about his the mother who breastfed him when he was younger, coming into the area. He left the gathering and went and placed his coat on the floor for her to walk over. That's the kind of respect that we need to be giving women. We hear about Harvey Weinstein and the other sexual scandals across the world. That has nothing to do with how we should be treating our women. Women should be treated with respect, and women should be treated with love. That's what we believe. And indeed, men should be treated in the same way by women as well. But in no way whatsoever should we ever make the mistake of making one gender or one sex as a first or second class citizen. This is completely wrong and against the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, reinforced by that of the promised Messiah. There is consensus in Islamic world between all sects that you guys are not Muslims. Come on, man. You guys are obviously only tuning in right now. I've done like a 20-minute conversation on this. Yes. But who do you believe? Do you believe if I come here and I get 20 other guys to come and say, well, I don't think you're a person, I think you're a robot. Or when that Snapchat thing comes up on your thing and says, are you a robot? But then 20 come up and say, are you a robot? And you say, oh, I'm not sure actually, I might be. No, you know that you are not a robot. You know that you're a person. I know that I'm a Muslim. A Muslim believes in the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. I believe in him. And the Muslim believes in God and Allah and the commandments that He sent. We believe in the Quran. We believe in the Salah. We believe everything that we're supposed to believe in. If someone then can't handle the fact that I call myself a Muslim, I'm sorry, but that's kind of your problem, not mine. I don't care if every single person in the world stands up and says that I'm not a Muslim. Have you opened my heart to check? It's a famous event. There was a battle going on. A person was killed. Before the killing, an individual was in a battlefield, all the spears, arrows, that kind of stuff. An individual, a companion of the Prophet, he was engaged in battle with another individual. And just before he died, he went, I'm a Muslim. But the companion killed him in the battlefield. This is not like a regular thing. This is a battlefield, in the middle of battle. So think of all the battles in the world, World War I, World War II. Killing is still wrong in all situations, but indeed in battle and in war, it's another concept altogether. Moving forward, the person that did the killing was a companion, a very pious person. He went back to the Holy Prophet and he told him, and the Prophet said, the companion said that this person, just before he died, he said, I'm a Muslim, and he tried to say I'm a Muslim just so that nothing would happen. Having, of course, started the war against the Muslims. Again, war is only defensive allowed. That's another point we'll talk about later. In this situation, the Holy Prophet turned around and said, did you open his chest to see whether he was telling the truth? It's very, very important. Here the Holy Prophet has laid down the foundations of belief that if an individual says he's a Muslim, then we will regard him as a Muslim. In the time of the Prophet, there was a census that was held. And the definition of a Muslim that he said, that they came and said, well, we have to do a census, and what should we do as a definition of a Muslim? And he said, anyone who says they're a Muslim, they're a Muslim. I say that I'm a Muslim. So who's more important? The definition of the person who started Islam, or some random politician sitting on the other side of the world who has got nothing better to do because of the fact that he wants to take money for things that actually in religion should be done for free, like education, like giving people their human rights. I believe in giving that for free. I do not believe in taking money for that. If someone wants to turn that into political gain and demonize me for it, well then I guess we have a problem. But I'm guessing the good people of Twitter and Facebook will agree with me on that situation. How are we doing for time, guys?
Maybe one last question.
One last question. A nice one. Why do Muslims want to implement Sharia law in the UK? That's a very weighted question, isn't it? Why? So first I have to argue on the premise of, do I want to implement Sharia law in the UK? But I'm guessing the person already knows what I'm thinking. No, I don't think so. Why do Muslims want to implement Sharia law in the UK? Okay, so a question for you, if you're still online. I hope you are, otherwise what's the point of me answering the question? Sharia means law. I was going to ask you the question, but I thought I might as well tell you anyway. Sharia means law. So that literally says, why do Muslims want to implement law in the UK? Law's already in the UK. We already have a good law in the UK. Sharia literally just means law and way of life. So we're happy with where we are. Do I look like I'm like holding a flag or like making people try to convert to Islam and forcing them to do so? No. I mean, we go to Parliament, we talk, and we make pragmatic and progressive comments trying to better society. We are good, helpful constituents in society, and every single theist should be. Not Ahmadis or not just Muslims. I believe it because the Messiah told me to believe it. He told me, and the message has been sent through from our caliphs as well, the fifth caliph, as I've mentioned before, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad. He says, in terms of when asked what integration is, he says that we should be loyal to our country, we should be contributing to the progress of our society, we should be law-abiding. And the way we show that is in many forms. We don't just say it. We are out on the street doing poppy appeals. What have you done to raise money for your veterans? We are out giving blood, all of us, most of us, and indeed the guys sitting here organising this, definitely. What have you done? We are out there on a daily basis giving money, giving time, giving sweat, and giving blood, literally, for this nation. Why do you think that we are here doing this broadcast? Am I in some sort of secret mission to implement this crazy law? Where is this law? I mean, can someone show me a copy of the Sharia law? Is this a handbook which has been given out without my knowledge? The Sharia is literally an understanding of the rules of Islam. And Islam clearly states in the Holy Quran, live according to the law of the land. Be a law-abiding citizen. My caliph, the person who is in charge of millions, tens of millions of people across the world, is a law-abiding citizen. Even when our members of our community in recent years were gunned down, when grenades were thrown at them while they were prostrating to their God, we talk about an infringement of human rights, please. Even then, the message he gave out was of peace and a message of steadfastness and a message that not a single person should be out on the streets in protest. They should be a law-abiding protest in terms of sending messages and sending letters to the government and to speak out to the international government for an understanding and to an elimination of this continued prejudice and this continued discrimination. That is our message. So what is Sharia law? Sharia law is to be truthful. Sharia law is to be righteous. Sharia law is to look after the women in your life. Sharia law is to be a good partner, be it woman or man. Sharia law is to go to work and be pragmatic, not just live off the benefits of other people. Sharia law is to be well-dressed. Sharia law is to drive safely on the road. Sharia law is to have a nice house and be clean, be well-spoken, don't swear, don't hit people, don't kill the innocent, look after the religious rights of others, look after the freedoms and make sure the human rights of other people are looked after no matter where you are, which country you are. Make sure that you are progressive and make the world a better place. Is that really so bad? That's Sharia law. Sharia law is not in the countries that you look around now. There's not one single country in the world that implements Sharia law. We see the killing of journalists. We see the killing of people who don't do anything wrong. We see the killing of people who have made choices for themselves and yet are being killed mercilessly. In fact, these are the people that are the same as the people at the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, who opposed him. The people who were so hell-bent on violence and destruction that they took a woman and tied half of her to a camel on one end and her legs to another camel and made the camels run apart. And they tore her down the middle. Graphic, I know. This happened. Where people were laid down on scorching sand with boulders placed upon them and told to forcefully renounce your faith. This is happening in the world today. And unfortunately is being carried out by Muslims, named Muslims. This is the need of the Messiah. The Messiah is here in fulfillment of the prophecies of the Bible, of the Quran, and indeed all the other major religions. And if you're asking, well, why is it a different person? Go back and look at Christians especially. Go back and look at Elijah and John the Baptist. What happened there? There was a concept that Elijah was going to come back, and who did Jesus take the people to see? That'll answer your question about the two different people. If you're a Muslim and you're asking why there are two different people, Lal Mahdi wa illa Isa. It says that there is no Mahdi other than Jesus. And he clearly states that this is a need of the time. The Prophet has said that we should believe in this Messiah. It's not me saying it or someone else saying it. We're Muslim. If we don't believe in the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, why can we call ourselves a Muslim? And in fact, Deuteronomy 18:18 prophesies Muhammad to be coming. So, I mean, Christians and Jews, please look into that as well. The fact is that there was prophecies upon prophecies upon prophecies. How much more do we need to know? The signs are there. It's just up to us to believe in them as soon as possible. The fifth caliph is Hassan ibn Ali. Okay, again, there's a lot of debate in regards to this, and of course we will talk about Shiism if you really want to, and then if there's enough people talking about it, then we can discuss it at a later date. Just quite simply, fine, if you want to believe that, I am no one to tell you that, no, you are wrong and you will believe in what I want to believe. I don't believe that. I believe that the Khulafa Rashidin, who were after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, were the truly rightly guided caliphs, and Hazrat Ali was the last caliph of them, and that's what I believe in. And then after them, according to the prophecy of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, we see the advent of the promised Messiah, who again fulfilled the prophecies of all major religions. And just a quick anecdote or a quick example of that. So we're all looking for people with different names. Someone's looking for Krishna, someone's looking for Jesus, someone's looking for the Imam Mahdi. So there's loads of people. Let me just bear with me. Try and imagine this. I've given this before. It usually works. Hopefully it can work on the screen as well. My hands need to go this way, that way. You're all standing at a platform on a railway station, and there's 5 people standing there, and there's no one else there, and there is one train that's going to arrive. And you all know that this train has one passenger, and it's going to arrive at, I don't know, let's say 10 minutes past 8, 22 minutes past 8, just for the fact that it's got a minute left in the video. 22 minutes past 8, this train is arriving. No one else on the platform apart from you 5 people. You ask one person, he says, I know for fact that there is one train that's going to be arriving at 8:22. It's going to have one passenger on, but that person is my uncle. The next person says, nah, that can't be right, because I know there is only one train coming at 8:22 with one passenger, and that person's my dad, so you must be wrong. You can see where I'm going. The 5 people basically call this same person by 5 different names. And as soon as this guy gets off the railway station, he gets off the train, they all run to hug him. And then he explains that actually, well, I'm related to all, I mean, this is some really distant family where, like, uncles and brothers have never met each other. But still, you understand the point where these 5 individuals actually realize we were calling the same person by different names. Why, if we believe that God is all-powerful and all-seeing, would he be sitting down and watching this silly game in humans? That, I'm going to send several different reformers by different names around the same time and see who you believe in. No, religions are linear. They start from the beginning of time and then they go forward as mankind progresses. And all of them have consistently talked about the coming at the end, latter days, of a person who's going to reform everyone and bring them all back to God. We believe that person has come, and we are the community that believes in the Messiah. And we would all invite you to do so with us. I think with that, please remember me in your prayers as well. And thank you for listening.